was a bad clap. Hello my beautiful, wonderful friends, and welcome to a brand new video. I hope you're doing well, and yeah, I hope you're excited to be sewing today, because I am. Today, we're going to be making a pair of stays. The pattern I'm using says 16th century, but it does work all the way up to the 18th century. I'm no historian, but I know silhouettes, so don't come for me. The pattern I'm using is no pattern at all. I have a secret for you. This is my secret weapon. People on the internet who are passionate, they're so willing to just do all of this research and supply it to the people of the world for free because they just want you to be happy. And that's where I come in. I'm going to tell you about a website called elizabethancostume.net. I'm going to link it in the description because it is so important to me. They have a pattern generator where you put in your measurements for your bust, your underbust, and your waist, and it tells you to take a inch by inch grid, and it tells you what points to plot, and then it makes you your own perfect pattern. And I used it a while ago to make this lovely piece of stays, and it would be perfect if I didn't use orange thread. And you know, it's just kind of ugly, but I love her dearly, and don't be mean. So I have the pattern that I drafted many moons ago on some wrapping paper, because wrapping paper has an inch by inch grid on the back. So I'm going to use that, but you can just use the website. So today, I'm going to be using what's left of my beautiful Chinese brocade. Oh, isn't it just gorgeous? It was so expensive, but I got it on sale. Would recommend. That's not historically accurate. Nothing I do is historically accurate. And since it frays a lot, we're going to be doing a few little modifications here and there. But that's okay, it's fine. You'll also need a lining fabric, some bias binding, as well as boning. You can go get synthetic whalebone, the metal ones, or zip ties, which I am partial to because it's not expensive. So let's get started. Welcome to my floor. I have my pattern laid out. So this is the front seam, and it's on the straight grain. That's important. Cut it out on the straight grain. They're two separate pieces. We're not cutting it out on the fold because the back, I didn't draw it out, but there is a little triangle part that comes out here. Also in my pattern, I have all the little tabs drawn out. Those are the wrong tabs. I drew them out too little, and also don't cut them out yet. We're gonna just cut it out as one big piece. It'll make your life so much easier. Yeah, so I'm just gonna snip, 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 making sure to add seam allowance. I'm gonna add a little extra on the front so that when we go to put in the eyelets, there's a little bit more fabric for it to go through. You know. Now that I have the stays pieces cut out, I'm going to also cut out the exact same pieces in the lining. Lining fabric doesn't really matter what it looks like. Obviously non-stretch, cut it on the same grain that you cut your stays, stuff like that. Okay, now I have our brocade and our lining fabrics cut out. This is what one of the pieces looks like. Doesn't look like much yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch up the back seams first, just using a straight stitch, nothing fancy. And then I'm going to do something unheard of that might get me smote by the sewing gods. I am going to serge the edges. Now I know, that's not historically accurate. However, if you've worked with brocade, you'll know it's necessary. Because if I'm going to be going through and sewing boning channels and everything, by the time I go to actually put the two pieces together, I will no longer have any brocade. I will just have fibers just everywhere. It'll just be floating around. It'll suck for everyone. I'll be sad. You'll be sad. Nobody wants that. Just gonna go along and just serge it. It will save both of us a lot of time and tears. So many tears. Okay, so I have the lining pinned on here. Well, actually, it's both of them, but it's inside out. And I'm just gonna mark around where the waist sits, like all the way around, so that I know where to mark the boning channels and the tabs. So I have this extremely faint line, and that's where the waist is. So I'm going to divide this into 4 sections, which will be the tabs. I'm not gonna cut it yet. Don't cut it, just mark it out, or else. Okay. I have my 4 tabs marked out, 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll be the same on this side, obviously. And the reason I've done this is so that we can get a good idea of where the boning channels need to be. We'll have one on each side of each, tab going all the way up. And the front busk is going to be almost pretty much fully boned. I think there is a graph on the website that I was talking about earlier. I will put it up. And yeah. So I've just drawn out some pretty basic guidelines. So I'm going to do one on each side of these lines for boning channels all the way down. And this one right here, it separates. Not sure why it's like that, just is. And then I'm going to start with doing the 2 on this side, and then I'm just going to keep moving up more and more and more until this entire piece is filled. Is it even corset making if you don't break a needle while making boning channels? Okay, so I have all my boning channels sewn, and I'm not going to put it in yet. First, I'm going to bind the bottom. I'm not going to do the top. Don't do the top. And so I'm just going to hand stitch it. And see, there's the little bits you can tell, just the little parts where they are slightly open. That's where I'm going to cut down to form the tabs, and then we're going to still go up and bind around those. Those are a pain, so just be patient and take your time. Yeah. I might have gotten slightly carried away and excited and didn't film. However, I'm able to explain all of this relatively easily. So I did go around and bind the bottom with some bias tape. Let's see, do I have any lying around? Here it is, okay. Now, if you don't know how bias tape works, you probably shouldn't be attempting this project. You should probably start with some basic sewing, but I'll explain it to you. So, this is not folded bias tape, single fold bias tape, I think that's what it's called. It's cut on the diagonal of the grain, and then they fold in like both of the edges, and then you wrap it around a piece of fabric by just folding it in half and just like clamping it over top. Yeah. So I did that just all the way around the bottom and up the front, and before I did the top, which I haven't done yet, I slid in zip ties into all the boning channels. I used relatively small zip ties like these ones. They're very flexible. You don't need anything special. I got these at the Dollar Tree. Yeah, so I slid those into all of the boning channels. Look at that, oh my goodness, so structured, so gorgeous. So now that I've done that, I can go ahead and bind the top using more bias tape. If you were going to do little shoulder straps, you would do that before you bind the top, obviously. but I'm not going to because I don't feel like it. Anyways, okay, the top is bound. Frick yeah. Now, last step, technically, last like actual step, putting in the eyelets so you can lace this puppy up. Unless you want to like pin it, don't do that. Don't do that. That's stupid. So I'm gonna go through and I'm going to flip it inside out and pencil in about every inch. I'll put a little dot every inch. So typically when you do stays from an earlier period, like before corsetry, you'd be spiral lacing, so the eyelets would be offset by a little bit. I just don't like how that looks. I don't care. So I'm going to do them how you would see it done with normal corsetry. And if you want to yell at me, yell at me. Whatever. Okay, let's go mark some spots. Hello, welcome to the floor. So as you can see, kind of maybe, can you see them? I've marked the spots. So when making holes for eyelets, if you actually have skills, you would have an awl to poke the holes, but I don't. But you know what I do have? Tiny scissors. So you're going to go to your little spot, and I take my little sharpest pointy edge and just kind of stab it through. If there's one thing you take away from this video, it's that brocade is a fabric that hates being a fabric. All it wants to do is fray. So you can't just poke a hole and then put in the eyelets and call it a day, because one day your stays will just start coming apart and you'll be like, that's really sad. So fabric glue. It's a skill. No, it's not. Okay, so what we're gonna do. Eyelets have two pieces, a outside piece and an inside piece. One has a longer thingy. I'm so good at explaining. Words 1000. The longer piece you're gonna stick through first, just kind of worm it through, and usually you would just kind of go ahead and assemble it, but since brocade likes to hate itself, I'm going to take a little fabric glue and I'm just gonna put it around and just kind of spread it around so that all the bits that will fray are kind of secured down. And this will cause you a lot, or no, this will save you a lot of headache in the future. And we're just gonna wait for that to dry. And while we're doing that, you're gonna go find your hammer. Yeah, any hammer will do. If it's stolen from your garage, it'll be even better. And then what you do is you take the end with the short bit and you stick it over top. And usually there's a tool that you put on top before you hammer it, but I find that that's too much work. So I just go ahead and hit that shit. Put something underneath so you don't damage your floor, such as your handy dandy sketchbook. And then you just kind of whack. And look, now it's secured. And you're gonna do that all the way down. Yay. Okay, here she is in all of her glory. It is gorgeous. It is beautiful. Like, delicious. I'm just wearing it over top of a dress I made out of a bed sheet. Usually you would wear it over a chemise, and then you'd wear your peignets and your robe whatever you want to wear. But this is how I'm wearing it because it's beautiful and it deserves to be seen. Yeah, all of the resources are down below. So the thing I mentioned earlier about the eyelets being the kind of last step, I was referring to adding like the flossing so that the bones stay in place, but I was wrong, and those weren't introduced until like, way later. I'll put a date somewhere. Yeah, so I was wrong and I apologize. But yeah, so here she is. You should make this. If you do, show me, tell me about it. Follow me on Instagram. Yeah. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.